Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to this presentation, which will be looking at the impact of childhood trauma on our adult lives, particularly with regards to our mental health and also our marriages. My name is Dr. Aisha Malik. I'm a doctor from the UK. I'm a general practitioner, and I've spent the last 10 years helping people recover from childhood trauma and improve their marriages. So, what is childhood trauma? This can include emotional abuse, for example, calling someone's children names, abusing them, calling them names. It can be physical abuse. There might be neglect, such as not fulfilling that child's needs, not feeding them, not talking to them, not checking if they're okay. It can also include household dysfunction. Nearly 60% of children experience some form of trauma before adulthood. 60% is the majority, and it also includes people who are listening to this presentation and are present here. You may have faced your own childhood trauma because adversity is part of life, and consider what impact that has had on you. Trauma negatively affects brain development, emotional regulation, and social functioning. In our community, discussions about mental health are limited. There's often stigma associated with mental health. Childhood trauma is rarely addressed. There's also high prevalence of unreported domestic violence and substance abuse. According to the CDC, 1 in 4 children experiences physical abuse, 1 in 5 girls and 1 in 13 boys are sexually abused. What is happening to these children when they grow up to be adults? How does this affect their mental health? How does this affect their relationships? In a study conducted in 1998 called the ACE study, 17,000 children were examined, and the relationship between childhood trauma and their health as adults was looked at. They found individuals with a high ACE score had significantly more chance of developing mental health issues such as anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, and chronic diseases. So they also experienced physical problems such as ischemic heart disease, cancer, chronic lung disease, obesity, skeletal fractures, and liver disease. So that's really interesting that this childhood trauma is not just affecting these people mentally, but also their physical health. How many times is someone going to the doctor and they've got some heart disease and the doctor's checking their blood pressure or checking their cholesterol? But how many of them are asking them about childhood trauma so that we can intervene and we can help them with better physical health? Not many. Attachment theory. Attachment theory looks at early trauma and how that leads to insecure attachment styles, making it difficult to trust others and form healthy relationships. So when a child grows up where there's trauma, there's abuse, there's shouting, there's hitting, and whatever else is going on, there's an insecure environment for that child. They can't trust people around them. And so what happens when they become adults is now they're finding it hard to trust people around them. Their spouse, they find it hard. They might be paranoid. They might fear abandonment. They might have issues with intimacy. They might fear rejection. If that person says something, they criticize me, they give me feedback, that means they reject me, they're going to leave me. This triggers deep pain and a deep fear that this person has had for decades, that has stemmed from their childhood adversity and has wired their brain to feel threatened because that's what they've experienced. Research also suggests increased number of adverse childhood events as a child put adults at increased risk of being divorced and separated. And how often are we helping individuals who are now adults and they're having marital problems, and how many of us are helping them to address their childhood trauma? And I don't think we are. And I think if we do start doing this, we will see better results. And I'll come to some solutions in a few minutes. The transmission of trauma from one generation to the next also occurs. So parents, they affect their children directly through how they treat them and how they talk to them and how they nurture them. And also, if a parent has unresolved baggage, they have their own traumas that they haven't processed and worked through, they're also passing on their own traumas to that child unconsciously. So we want to break the cycle. We want parents to understand how their trauma affects their children, and we want to develop healthy, stronger bonds between parents and children. We want psychoeducation, where parents are taught about the impact of trauma and reduce the likelihood of passing it on. We want to see parenting programs where anger management is taught. We want premarital coaching programs. Prevention is better than cure. Why are we waiting for the marital problems and then intervening? We should have premarital coaching programs. We recognize trauma and adversity is also kind of part of life. No matter how well parents do their job, trauma, adversity, it's kind of life is a test. We are going to experience difficulties. So we need to develop coaching programs before people get married. Let's help them develop emotional regulation. Let's teach a man how to deal with day-to-day scenarios when something triggers him. For example, the food comes late and he's getting angry with his wife. Why is the food late? Why did you do this? He's shouting, he's going crazy. His reaction is just an overreaction. It really wasn't such a big deal. But this is what we are seeing happen in marriages and arguments over petty issues. Why? Because people are being triggered. Their deep pain and deep trauma and unresolved baggage is being triggered, and they themselves can't work out why they're getting so upset by this trivial issue. So the husband, he can have coaching. He can understand when my wife brought the food late, this meant that I wasn't respected, I wasn't loved. It reminded me of times when I was a child and no one fed me, no one cared about me, for example. And that when she brought the food late, it just triggered something so deep inside of me. So we can see that it's not the wife causing the problem here. It's the man. He's come along with his wounds, his premarital wounds, and it's just getting triggered in marriage. And the same thing with the wife. She's got her own wounds. So we've got two traumatized people getting married who are probably good people, but they can't build this happy marriage because they haven't healed from their trauma. We want to see programs in schools and communities breaking the trauma. We want to see mindfulness and coping strategies being taught. We want trauma-informed care. We also want to use our deen, things like prayer, acceptance, whatever happens to us in life is from Allah Almighty. We need to develop skills to be able to accept whatever we have experienced. We want to journal, write out your thoughts. If something has happened that's triggered you, write out, reflect on it, practice gratitude, practice optimism, and use muraqabah and muhasabah. Reflect on your actions, what's going on, why did you feel a certain way, why did you behave a certain way, and move forward in the best way, inshallah. Thank you for listening. That's my YouTube channel and website. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.